Today I'd like to share my views on this little book titled The Story of Obvious Adams by Robert Abdigraaf. It is really an old book published a long time ago in 1916, but it is packed with overlooked ideas that can transform your career really fast. I'm going to use a mind map as a tool to discuss the main ideas I've found in the book. These ideas are so powerful that I have no doubt that they can transform your life. In this review, this is what we'll cover. We'll look at the type of a person Oliver Adams was. We'll then look at how his career life began. Then we'll also look at the day that changed his career life for good. Next, we'll look at how Oliver rose to the top of the Oswald Agency. Lastly, but not least, we'll look at how you can see the obvious, the skills that you will need to develop to see the obvious. And once you do that, your life will never be the same again. Now, what's my passion? Well, my passion is to show people how to get what they really want. In this case, my focus is to show you how to transform your career in a matter of a few years. Now let's dive into it and look at who this obvious Adams was. Well, these are the ways that a lot of people who knew him used to describe him. They saw him as a simple, ordinary looking man who did not have special talent, but there was something about him. He had a very keen sense of observation, and that enabled him to say things people already knew, but for some reason they didn't do. And he was responsible for the success of many businesses. One of the outstanding characteristics of his was he always followed through on what he saw and believed to be true. He had a very high level of personal initiative, which goes hand in glove with persistence. And of course, he was a detailed young man with a very unusual focus. As we discuss further the story of obvious Adams, we will see the areas where these qualities of this young man came to the fore. Let's begin the study of this boy by looking at how he began his career. Well, the boy was poor and he had almost no education. And when he was 12 years old, his father died. And after the passing of his father, he then worked in a grocery store. And at the store, well, as always, by his nature, he looked ordinary, and it didn't appear as if he was a boy with any personal initiative, and didn't look like he had any bright ideas. But for some reason, the business, the grocery store, kept on growing year after year. Interestingly, the people who knew the business knew that the business wasn't growing because of the owner, because the owner was really described as the type who was not of a growing kind. Now, an serious incident happened while Oliver was still working at the store, and this incident was the death of the owner. Once the owner died, the grocery store was sold. As a result, Oliver lost his job. This is very interesting because, as you know, in life, there's a lot of things that as people we cannot control. Of course, there are some things that we can control that are in total control of ourselves. So obviously, when the store was sold, Oliver was never going to control who was going to buy the store, and he was never going to be in a position to tell the new store owner what to do with the store. So it appears in this case that the only thing that was the likely one to happen was for Oliver to lose his job. And well, this boy, while he was still working in the shop, he had saved a little bit of money, and with this money he traveled to New York. On his arrival there, this is what he did. He worked in the public market during the day and attended night school in the evenings. Now, it's very hard to tell at this point what it is that was driving this boy to make this kind of decisions. It's very unusual. Usually, most people, once they get work, they basically stop learning. I don't know. It is just the way most people do it. Most do not realize that life itself is not at a standstill. It's always progressing. It's always growing. And clearly, if one stops growing, he'll be left behind. So this essentially was the start of this young boy. Starts in a grocery store, helps grow the business. The owner dies, store sold, loses his job, goes to New York, gets a new job in a public market, and attends night school in the evenings. The author did not specify what kind of or course or school or Oliver was attending in the evening. So at this point, we just know that he attended school and he was working during the day. Now, while he was still working at the public market and still at the school, there was an event that occurred, that basically began or was the start of the transformation of this young Oliver. The principal of the school, the guy who ran the school, in the last year of Oliver Adams' schooling, he invited a guest to come and speak with the seniors of the school, the graduating guy, the guys who were going to graduate that year. So this man's name was Oswald, and he happened to own an agency, an advertising agency. So this Oswald guy is described as very influential, very inspiring guy. So it happened that in his talk he inspired Oliver, and Oliver liked the man and also liked the business. So after the session was over, he even had a short time to discuss or to talk about the advertising business with Oswald. Now later, as he went home, he decided that he was going to join the advertising business, and not only that he was going to work with Oswald. Now he slept with these thoughts in his mind. The following morning, the idea of joining the advertising business and working for Mr. Oswald had grown. The two mini ideas basically had connected, and it was at that time that Oliver really made up his mind that he is going to the advertising business and he is going to work for Oswald. And so he decided at that point that the obvious thing to do was to go and tell Oswald that he wanted to go into the advertising business and he was going to go and work for Oswald. It is here that we first see these two qualities of Oswald. He appeared to be a very patient young man and very persistent, because as he called on Oswald, the secretary, the lady at the reception, had informed Oliver that Oswald was going to see him something like in about two hours. And Oswald didn't mind. He said, "That's fine. He can wait." The way Oswald describes Oliver, he used phrases such as he lacked the qualities of an advertising man. He lacked alertness, you know. So for that reason, he felt this boy was never going to make it in the advertising business. So he eventually declined Oliver's request. Well, at the end of the discussion, Oliver stood up and said and told Mr. Oswald that he is going to prove himself fit for the advertising business. But he also mentioned something that is very critical, and which is, I think, for most of us, it is always true. Usually, when we want to do something new, we don't know how it's done. We don't even know how we are going to do it. But for most of us, we never go beyond that stage. It was different with Oliver. He told Mr. Oswald that although he doesn't know how he'll do it, he's going to do it. And he'll call again when he has found out how to prove himself to Oswald that he can be an advertising man. Now, these last remarks of the young Oliver humiliated Oswald. He felt very small for being snubbed by the young boy with his last remarks. So he kept on thinking about those last words that Oliver said. And the following morning, he thought there could be something that a young boy like him could do in his business. So he eventually hires Oliver to check and file the periodicals in the office. And this young Oliver eventually, starting from those humble beginnings, eventually became the head of the agency. Not only the head, he was also the vice president. I'm sure you're curious to know how this young man started from that mediocre job of filing and checking periodicals to the head of the agency. And that's what we're going to talk about next, how this boy rose to the top. Now, while he was working on his first job of checking and filing periodicals, within a month he had mastered his job, and he went to his boss and suggested certain changes that they could implement to improve the work he was doing. His boss didn't have problems with that. He agreed with him, and Oliver went away and implemented the ideas that he had. Now, within 3 months, the new method worked so well that Oliver went back to his boss and reported that the new method is working, and is working very, very well. He further suggested that a girl at 2/3 his salary could do the job. Well, such things under normal circumstances are not possible unless the method itself has become a system, has been systemized. And I guess this is what Oliver did, systemizing the method and also optimizing it to produce the maximum results. And his new method basically saved a lot of time and handling. In addition, it minimized the errors that were typical of that operation. Now, when he went to his boss to suggest that a girl at 2/3 can do his job, he asked his boss something that is very critical, which again is a demonstration of the quality of personal initiative that this Oliver guy had. He asked his boss if there isn't anything better for him to do other than the filing and checking job. He proposed that he has seen, the guys who work in the copy department working in the night, and he felt maybe they might need some help, and he was ready to go and lend the help. But of course, it never materialized at that time. So Oliver went ahead and kept working on his job. Now, something that further happened was at the time there was new copy work that was to be done for a company that canned peaches. Now, of course, Oliver got wind of the story, and he decided to write copy for that campaign. He basically appointed himself to write copy, although, of course, he probably knew that his copy was never going to be used to run the campaign. So at any rate, Oliver went on and studied about peaches. He bought some, ate, he thought about them, he studied. Basically, he studied as much facts as he could about peaches. He read as much as he could, spending his evenings studying the canning process of peaches. Now, one day he was seated on his desk, putting the finishing touches to the copy that he had written. Then the copy chief happened to come to ask for some tasks to be done, and Oliver stood up and went to do the task for the copy chief. It was at that time that the copy chief became aware of the copy that Oliver had been putting together. So he read over the copy, read it again. By the time Oliver came back from his task, he found that the chief wasn't there, and his copy had disappeared as well. So the copy chief had gone to the president of the agency, Mr. Oswald, and showed him the work or the copy that Obvious had done. And during the discussion between the copy chief and the president, they eventually agreed that they would apprentice Oliver to the copy department. And obviously it was easy for Oliver to leave his previous job, because he had put a system in place which did not require somebody who was highly qualified to do the job. So you can see very clearly here that there's a very good lesson here for us all who are employees. If you're holding on a role, your job is to grow, and if you want to grow, it will be a very good idea to, if you can, to put the systems in place that will enable you to produce consistent results. And if you can write it down, because by writing that system down, you can easily hand that system over to someone else without having the results your role produces being affected. And I believe it is this that enabled the copy chief and the president to allow Oliver to become an apprentice to the copy department. On his arrival day, in the beginning, his copy was very crude. It was raw. And at this point, the copy chief thought he had made a mistake. He started to have thoughts that this boy cannot be a copywriter. However, Oliver's fortunes were to change. The agency landed a new advertising account from a company that baked cakes. And what the company wanted was they wanted to increase distribution. They wanted to make more sales, basically. Now, Oliver, when he heard about this new account, he started to study about the cake, bought a piece of it and ate. He studied about it. He studied the process of producing the cake, and he basically worked on that cake problem every night. To his disappointment, it happens to us all, isn't it? To his disappointment, the copy was given to a guy called Preston, and this really knocked Adams down. But after a few days, he got over it, and he decided to continue working on the copy. 3 weeks later, Preston had finished writing the copy for the cake campaign. And when Oliver saw the advert, his confidence took him up. Because when he looked at the copy, he thought to himself that I will never write a copy like this. And he almost gave up. But to his surprise, the results from the campaign were very disappointing. And the baking company decided that at the end of the 6-month campaign, they're not going to continue running that campaign with the Oswald agency. And this negatively impacted Oliver. He was down, very down. So after this episode, this event, Oliver went back and reviewed his copy. And after he had finished reviewing the copy, he went to Mr. Oswald, the president, and showed him the copy. And Oswald was impressed. After being impressed, he went to the cake company to try and get back the campaign on track. The cake company liked the copy plan that Mr. Oswald presented to them. Now, in the preparation of the copy, Oliver had used his experience from the grocery shop. He basically applied some of the techniques that he had used in the grocery shop to put together the copy. He made things very simple for himself. So in the copy, he had shown the details of how the whole copy should flow, and how people should feel when they see the copy. For example, when they looked at the packaging, he felt their mouth should water. And that's what his copy did. Of course, the copy needed a bit of refining, and it was given to the copy chief and one of the crackmen to refine it. On running the campaign, within the first month, the sales increased by 30%, despite the copy being so simple, homely. But what it did is it told the details. And this campaign was one of the most successful that the company had ever had since they began doing this kind of work. Now, later on, Oliver got another opportunity to do good. A head company that had 2 stores had a problem. They had a store that was doing very well, was making sales, and the second one that they had wasn't making sales. Despite trying as best as they could to advertise, only one store kept on making sales, and they couldn't understand what the problem was. But what they were adamant on, they wanted to keep the 2 stores because they believed the area was big enough to support 2 stores. So after lengthy discussions, the big guys could not figure out what the problem was and what the solution could be. And in that discussion, Mr. Oswald suggested rather for the company to give him 2 weeks to study up the situation, and he would come back to them. And the head company agreed. Now, Mr. Oswald decided to take a gamble on Oliver, basically give him the task to discover what the problem is and figure out what the solution could be without asking anyone. for the sales figures of those two shops. Basically, you needed to figure out which of the two shops or the two stores was paying and which one was not, and why was that the case. And of course, Oliver went and studied up the problem, and he figured out what the problem was, which was really about the positioning of the shop. It had nothing to do with any other thing, because the shops were essentially the same shops. It was the location, the way they were positioned, that was different, which he believed was the cause. And at any rate, what happened was Oliver eventually went back with a solution, and at the end of the lease for the store that was not paying, the shop was moved to another location, and he started making sales. And that's how basically Oliver solved the problem. His next task involved a company that made paper. The company was interested in advertising, and again the task was given to Oliver by the president. Now this is what Oliver did. The first thing that he did when he arrived at the mill, of course, he had a discussion with the president of the company, and in the discussion, the president wanted some answers to the questions that he had, the things that could be done, in order to improve the state of affairs of the company in terms of sales. Oliver told him that it would not make sense for him to start proposing things before he could understand the paper business, the paper process, the manufacturing of this paper. So he was given a guide to take him around the plant, the manufacturing plant. While doing so, he collected as many facts as he could about how the process works. And once he collected all the information that he needed, in the night, he sat down and basically wrote up prototype solutions for the problems. He basically wrote ads. And now when he showed the president of the company those ads, the president's heart sank. Now, when his heart sank, he had thought what he saw on the ad was never going to work. What Obvious had done there, he had stated the facts, how paper is made from start to finish. Now, the president believed other companies who were making paper will laugh at him, will laugh at their company. It was quite fascinating what Oliver responded when the president said other companies will laugh at them. This is what Oliver asked him: Mr. Merritt, to whom are you advertising? Paper makers or paper users? The president quickly realized that Adams had a point, and he basically admitted that advertising really is just plain common sense. And Adams went back to New York with the contract, and of course the paper campaign became a success right from the start. And again, it was the obviousness of Oliver that made this campaign a success. Now, if we really look at the career of this young man, it is apparent, it is very clear that it wasn't his technical skills that made him succeed. He had certain fundamental qualities which are key in every kind of career. And if we were to look at those qualities, we will realize that one of the key qualities we need to have, we need to display, is curiosity, the desire to want to know things. And coupled with that, for us to know things, we will be required, we must make observations. it is this phase, the observation phase, that enable us to collect the facts about whatever it is that we're observing. We get the details of whatever we're observing, and from those facts we can then go to the next stage. We can go and apply the next skill, that of analysis. This analysis simply means we take something that is very complex and we break it into parts. The reason we break it into parts is we want to understand how the parts fit together, and then we can rearrange them in a manner that they work much better than they worked initially. And after we've broken these facts of ours into parts, now comes the rearranging of those facts, the rearranging of those parts. And this is what one may even call thinking, but the primary skill there is synthesis. This is when we put the pieces together. And once we put the pieces together, obviously to put the pieces together we must be able to recognize patterns. And it is the pattern recognition that eventually leads us to the solution to whatever problem we're investigating. And usually when someone looks at the solution, they will think, why didn't I think about that? So you can clearly see that for one to really win in his or her career, it's not so much about the technical skills. For example, how well you work on a computer, or how well you can bake a cake, or how well you can cook, or how well you can sing, and that's well and good. But there's these hidden qualities that once one start having, all of a sudden, life becomes much more exciting. And it is these that are, I felt I should share with you, and hopefully these ideas could help you transform your career. And that's basically what I had for you today. Thank you.